You're watching Boston Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Jayson. Before we hop into today's show, after a really impressive Celtics win on Wednesday night over the Philadelphia 76ers, in which that last defensive sequence with Al Horford just putting the clamps on Tobias Harris, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're getting closer to 8,000 subscribers, and if you want more Celtics videos, you just hit that red subscribe button down below. As for what we're getting into on today's show, getting into the latest Boston Celtics trade rumors, and it seems as though, and looks as though, and appears as though Philadelphia 76ers not giving up in their pursuit of Jaylen Brown. And it's easy to see why. Jaylen Brown over time has become a very good two-way player, one of the best on both ends in my opinion. And the Philadelphia 76ers, led by Daryl Morey, are just really trying to trade away Ben Simmons for an elite player. The problem is Ben Simmons' value has tanked just a bit, and Daryl Morey trying to do everything he can to at least not squander a very, very good asset who is a first-team All-Defender last year. Check this out. So Bleacher Report talking about some NBA trade ideas and mentioned and resurfaced that deal that we talked about a couple weeks ago, which I actually thought was kind of ludicrous from Shams Charania about the Sixers' interest in trading away Ben Simmons for Jaylen Brown. There is absolutely no way that general manager and president of basketball operations Brad Stevens would do a player-for-player swap, sending away Jaylen Brown only for Ben Simmons. The only way I could see that deal potentially happening is if Philly included like a Tyrese Maxey, a Matisse Thybulle, future picks, as well as Ben Simmons in a deal for Jaylen Brown, and that would only be if they decided as an organization that Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum could no longer coexist as a pairing. I think it can. As for what Bleacher Report said, Charania reported that any potential deal between Philly and Boston would have to include Jaylen Brown, something the Celtics and president Brad Stevens were unwilling to do. This doesn't mean that the 76ers should give all hope up just yet, however. In the 9 games Brown has missed this year because of injury, the Celtics are a surprising 6-3. The future of Jayson Tatum and Brown together is certainly one that teams around the NBA, will keep tabs on, although there's no reason for a split yet, with both under contract for the next 3+ years. There is some reason to worry about the pairing of Jayson Tatum as well as Jaylen Brown, because the last couple of years, this has been a team that's been floating around 500. They played a frustrating style of basketball, and them on the court together has not really translated to a bunch of wins or an overwhelming amount of success for the Boston Celtics. And when you play for an organization that has the most NBA championships in NBA history, that every year, year in and year out, is going to get a lot of support from the fan base and a lot of support from ownership, they're always going to be willing to spend. You want to strive for more than a 500 record. And if JB and JT continue to struggle with Boston, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I don't think it's the craziest thing to talk about and explore the possibility of those two being broken up. I just don't think it's going to happen this year. And if it doesn't happen this year, then we're really not talking about a realistic trade that would send Ben Simmons from Philadelphia to Boston and Jaylen Brown from Boston to Philadelphia. So I say all of that, and I ask you this, Celtics fans. Will the Celtics split up Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown? I'm not saying this year. I'm saying at some point in the future. Do you think that this pairing cannot exist for the long haul? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Be sure to get those votes in the comment section down below. We continue to talk about these Boston Celtics trade rumors, and I do think that while the Celtics have improved over the last couple of weeks, after a little bit of a sluggish and slow start to begin the season, they have started to play a better brand of basketball. I like what I'm seeing defensively under head coach Ime Udoka. With the new coach trying to implement his scheme, you have to give them a little bit of a buffer zone to figure out what the coach wants and how the players kind of coexist with the new coach. That win against the Sixers on Wednesday night, I thought was really, really impressive for this Boston brass. It was an ugly, slow it down type of sluggish offensive game, but really Boston was great defensively, led by Al Horford and Enes Freedom going up against Joel Embiid. We'll talk about that here in just a bit, but first, I want to talk about this wonderful holiday deal thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Check out this Boston Celtics hoodie. Love the material. Of course, love the classic Celtics logo. It was $70. It is now on sale, folks, for $35. Only if you use that link down below, chatsports.com/Celtics hoodie. This all thanks to our friends at Fanatics, but if you want to treat yourself or somebody else during the holiday season, you have to use that link down below so that they know that Chat Sports sent you and so that you can get 50% off on this fresh Celtics hoodie. All sizes available right now, but they're going quickly, so get those holiday shopping items in right now. Let's shift now to kind of my focus and my biggest takeaway from the Celtics win over the Philadelphia 76ers. And yes, Joel Embiid came off a COVID outbreak within that Philadelphia 76ers locker room and a COVID stint on the COVID-19 list in which he suffered really, really badly from some COVID-19 symptoms. This is something that Celtics fans are really familiar with, considering that Jaylen Brown last year and Jayson Tatum had their own hurdles to overcome with COVID. Jayson Tatum was using an inhaler last year because he didn't recover quickly from the coronavirus. Joel Embiid spoke with the Philadelphia media back a couple days ago and said, I feel lucky to be here because COVID kicked my ass. He actually used the word John, which, hey, if you live in Boston, maybe you don't know that John, a great Philadelphia word. But the topic here that I want to get to, do the Celtics own Joel Embiid? It seems as though every time he goes up against this team, when they have Al Horford on the roster, he really struggles. Now, Joel Embiid is trying to find his footing. He is getting his stamina up. But man, Al Horford and Enes Freedom owned him last night, and I mean owned him. Joel Embiid had one of the worst games that I've seen him put forward in a really long time. He only managed 13 points, 3 of 17 from the floor, 18 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Of course, the rebounding numbers, the block shots, he's always going to be able to make his imprint on the game. But if Embiid isn't a high-level offensive player for the Philadelphia 76ers, they are not anything close to the same team, especially without Ben Simmons. You go back to the early part of Embiid's career, when Al Horford was on the Celtics, he has always put the clamps on Embiid. He is a really strong lower body, almost strong down low, and he just doesn't give up any space in the post to Embiid, which is really impressive because Embiid has the height advantage. He has the weight advantage. Embiid's like 285, yet Al Horford is always able to maintain his own in the post against Embiid. And this is a really important development for Boston because you have to think that both of these teams are going to be jockeying for positioning in the Eastern Conference playoff race. Maybe in the postseason, they actually end up going up against one another. And if Embiid is held in check by Al Horford and Enes Freedom, it's going to go a long way for the Celtics possibly getting better playoff positioning over Philadelphia or maybe even winning a playoff series against the 76ers. And at the end of the day, this is really why the Celtics went out and acquired Al Horford and why they went out and brought in Enes Freedom. A lot of these deals fell under the radar just a bit during the offseason for Boston because you're like, is Al Horford washed? Is Enes Freedom just a journeyman at this point? Those guys were brought in to be elite-level defenders against Joel Embiid, and you saw last night that was very, very effective. So, before I get out of here, I have another question for you. Do the Celtics own Joel Embiid? Let me know in the comment section down below. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Celtics today. Appreciate all of you watching.